Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Waumsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode number 198, entitled Value Pricing versus Fixed Pricing. It was published on Thursday the 24th of September 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and a few bits of housekeeping like we always do before the show begins proper. Please head over to wpbuilds.com, that is our main website and the place where we put all of our WordPress related content, and we do produce quite a bit of WordPress content each week. You'll see podcast episodes, news episodes, there's giveaways, there's all sorts going on over there. A way to stay in touch with all of that is to go to wpbuilds.com/subscribe, sign up to the newsletters to keep in touch with the content that we produce, but also to find out about any deals that we hear about during the week. Also, wpbuilds.com/deals if you'd like to avail yourself of coupon codes. It's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. Significant amounts off plugins, themes, and so on. wpbuilds.com/deals. We've got a competition going on. You can win one of 3 Weglot licenses. That's over at wpbuilds.com/win. If you've got a job, head over to wpbuilds.com/jobs. And finally, wpbuilds.com/advertise if you would like to advertise your product or service in front of a WordPress specific audience. The WP Builds podcast is brought to you today by the Page Builder Summit. Do you use a page builder to create websites? Or perhaps you're curious about what they can do? Whether it's Elementor, Beaver Builder, Gutenberg, Breezy, Oxygen, or any of the other page builders, the Page Builder Summit will have something for you. It's running from October the 5th to October the 9th, and you can check out the amazing speaker list and get yourself a free place at summit.camp. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time, like in a couple of minutes? Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. The best part about A/B split test is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out at absplittest.com. Okay, just before we begin, a word about what's happening during this week. Hopefully, we'll have our WP Builds weekly WordPress news on Monday. That comes out at 7 a.m. UK time, and then we'll have the live version of the show, 2 p.m. UK time. This podcast will be repeated each and every Thursday. That comes out at 1 p.m. UK time on a Thursday. And also, we should have some other live shows, possibly the 0 to 10k installs with Sabrina Zidane. That happens on a Tuesday. You can find all of the live stuff at wpbuilds.com/live or in our Facebook group. Okay, today we're talking about value pricing versus fixed pricing. So the idea when you walk into a shoe shop is that you see the label on the shoe and you know that it costs £80 for these pair of shoes. It's fixed pricing. And this presumably is the way that many of us have built websites in the past. You've just given a fixed price and people have been able to discover what that price was even before they communicated with you, perhaps by looking at your pricing page on a website. But more recently, we've got into value pricing, the idea being that you price based upon the value that the client will receive from it. So if they've got a big business and you increase that business by 10% with something that you could do, you could charge significantly more. And that's the point. You can charge significantly more. Well, is this suitable for you? Are you better with value pricing or are you better with fixed pricing? David and I debate it today. I hope that you enjoy the episode.
Hello, today we are looking at value pricing versus fixed rate. So I'm going to enjoy this actually, Nathan. It's not directly related to WordPress, but there are so many business courses and events for those running WordPress services that focus on it. And I think it's probably true to say that overwhelmingly, they advise a type of value pricing over a fixed rate. And that's, I better explain it, hadn't I?
Yeah, that would be good,
where you charge according to the value to the customer because it's more about finding out what customers see as their value. So it's it's quite a sort of sophisticated model, I guess, rather than just kind of what it costs you against, what you need to charge on an hourly rate. So Nathan, you're going to argue the I was going to say fixed rate, but I'm going to say the non-value pricing. You're going to argue.
Yeah, I think basically because I don't bring any value, so it would be almost ridiculous for me to argue. Now it's interesting. I think there's an awful lot in the value pricing argument, but we obviously have to take one side or the other. And I'm far more comfortable with the whole fixed rate thing, largely because I don't really feel that the things that I've done in the past. The knowledge that I've got and so on have led me to a real solid understanding of what value pricing is and how I might go about doing it, and also just the nature of the clients that I've had, where budget and things like that have been proper constraints. It's more difficult to justify. I think when you get into value pricing, there are certain ways which you can clearly win on, and I think the type of client that you've got and the nature of things that you've done in the past and the experience that you've had and so on can really stack up to make it a win. But yeah, I'm going with fixed pricing.
Yeah, and it's amusing that I'm actually doing the value pricing side because I'm kind of the opposite, aren't I? And in some ways, I have a bit of a beef as well about how value pricing is used in our industry a bit. So in a way, I would have thought, if we were picking sides on this initially, I would have said, because I associate you more with the value pricing, probably because you did WPA Elevation, which is a course which is very much a kind of about that, and maybe adopted some of those principles.
Yeah.
And also a silly one that you're an Apple user, so you're a Mac rather than a PC person.
Yes. That's an interesting thing to bring up straight away. Do you want to go through? Actually, before we go through that, let's just sort of get to the bottom of what these things are. So, fixed pricing. What I'm thinking here, as you said, is anything which is not value pricing. So it could be an hourly rate whereby you charge, I don't know, $70 an hour for tasks that you perform, and you maybe set the clock going at the beginning of the task and end it, and maybe round it at some point. But also the idea that you would scope out a project, figure out what it's worth, add in a percentage in order to make it profitable, some sort of contingency fund, and then just bill based upon that, and get your deposit, and then do a third stage, a second stage, third stage, whatever, and get the amounts of money for that. And then in the end, you've paid for the product, and the client knows exactly what they're getting. But it's largely built upon the idea of charging by the hour. Which is very much not in vogue at the moment, but without a shadow of a doubt, has a place in the market.
Yeah, and where there's room for confusion, because I think in our industry, when we talk about value pricing, most of the time it's about talking to a client and trying to find out a little bit about the client's own budgets, what it's worth to them to have a website, what that website might earn them, and kind of cost it according to that, which is maybe different from when we talk more generally about value pricing. So, the good successful examples are probably Apple and Starbucks, who do have, because they've got products, fixed rates, but they still, if you like, they've still used this more sophisticated model to look at the psychology, see how they can present the offer in a way that it's going to mean more to people and have value in their life. So there's a bit of a difference between, I think, value pricing in products and services and how it relates to us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The psychology of it, I feel, is the bit that we're probably going to not have much insight into, but is also, I think, probably the key component. It's about speaking to the client or the business or whatever, and trying to, I guess, pull levers in their brain which make them think, actually, you know what? This feels like something of value. They're suggesting something which I hadn't necessarily thought of. They're saying that they might be able to increase our revenue by doing this, and so on. And okay, it's possibly more expensive, but at least they've come up with these ingenious ideas, and they're putting their reputation on the line here to do it. So, yeah, the psychology, I think, is really important, because without that interplay of psychology, there's no way that you're going to get people beyond the fixed rate. That just seems in every scenario in life, just about everything has a price tag attached to it. You go into a shop, and certainly where I live, maybe not so much where you live, David, I don't know, but there's a price, and you walk in, you buy a pair of shoes, there's just no quibbling. That is the cost. If you want to buy that pair of trainers, it costs £89. If you want to buy that pair, it's £59, and there's probably some reason it's £89 as opposed to £59. Sometimes I think it might be the psychology at play, but you get the point. You pay you pay for what you see. And so stepping outside of that is an uncomfortable proposition, not only for clients, I think, because they're not used to, not knowing the price entirely up front and so on, but also from my point of view, I find that a difficult thing to do. A, because I'm not really sure what it is that I'm bringing in terms of value, but also because money and I have a strange relationship. I've just really disliked talking about it and so on. Typical person that I am, and so there we go.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but it's interesting what you just said about I don't know where you are. When I think about it, because I'm in Goa in India at the moment. I've grown up, if you like, thinking that kind of fixed pricing is the way it is. You like to see a price tag everywhere you go, and you like to be able to compare it with some others. And value pricing is kind of a new out there thing. But when I think about it, being here in Goa, value pricing is the way that everything is done. When the shopkeepers come out in the morning, the most important thing, it's a kind of tradition, is to get that first sale. It's their good luck for the day. So for them, that's the loss one. They will sell possibly even at a loss to get that first sale because they've got that. But also, anybody else who comes in after that point, chances are they're going to be looking at who you are to give you the price on it based on what they've gathered about you.
Right, so we've all had that experience, haven't we, when we've been on holiday? You feel that you've bought something and you kind of know that you've probably paid over the odds for it, but it feels like an okay transaction because you're on holiday, you've got a little bit of spending money set aside and so on, and also sometimes it's just not worth the haggle. But yeah, the notion that you can walk into a shop and see a pair of trainers, and then you can open up your mobile phone and see what they cost on an online range of stores, pick, okay, it's the exact same thing. Great, but it's £20 cheaper over at this particular website or this shop, this bricks and mortar shop. I'll go over there and buy it. There is something very comforting in that. You can do your own market research and come out with the winner. But obviously we're not selling trainers. We're selling something a little bit more aspirational. And before we recorded this call, we got into the whole design thing, design separated away from code. So the way it looks as opposed to the way it functions. And I think in value pricing, that can often be the thing which is more persuasive than anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I think when customers, why I think we need value pricing in our life, or we need to take it seriously, why I can argue for it quite easily, is because we have to have some kind of conversation with the client so they can understand, because we do so much. When we build a website, it's not necessarily what they thought they wanted when they came. They maybe just thought, I want these pages and I want them to look nice, with our branding. But they hadn't thought about the traffic or the conversion side or all the automation that we can also deliver in their business for them. They haven't gone through all of these things. So if you've got a fixed price and you have to fix it, you've got to kind of know what people are coming to you for. Well, I think the value pricing, if you can really let yourself down with fixed pricing if you've got a fixed price and then you've got clients who might come to you who've got a bigger budget and they're expecting much more to come back from the results of what they're asking for. You're not going to get that work because you're going to be too cheap for them. So I think the value pricing is very much about two things, isn't it? About trying to have a conversation with people to really understand the problem that you're solving for them, and that will dictate your price, but also within keeping with the kind of budgets that they're dealing with. So, if I was pitching for the interesting thing, when I started doing this, I did a website, this little intranet, which I'm sort of talked about for my employers. We were a big government agency, and I did it in a weekend. It got adapted by them as a project, but that project itself must have cost 100 times more than what it cost me to do it. And for one thing, when they were rebuilding that, they would have never have gone to somebody charging as low as I did, even if they wanted somebody as a third party to do it. But simply, they cost that amount of money because of their processes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think the thing which courses like WP Elevation they specialize on is trying to put into your head the things that you can value price against. So, you know, the conversations that you could strike up, the things that you could put in front of clients, the ways to say things, the psychology of how to frame things and when to go in with what particular offer and so on. And I think a lot of these things, just for somebody who's been born in a society where everything has a price ticket, a lot of those things are kind of counterintuitive. No, that's not true. Not counterintuitive, just not intuitive. You don't necessarily come up with them. So it takes people to have read all the literature and have the psychological thoughts and all of those kind of things to put it together so that you can understand it. But it doesn't necessarily make it that easy to do. I mean, in my situation, you were talking about the fact that you'd built something and it was largely able to achieve what the end product that cost 100 times more could do. I think it's fair to say that me and a lot of other people, I'm sure I could include you in this, really struggle to figure out what those things are, what the value of those things are. And it's probably because our process hasn't developed in that way. We haven't decided to spend that much time. But also largely because the clients maybe can't bear it. And that's something that you can always bear in mind, is the clients might have a budget which is dramatically reduced compared to what your value pricing would have. And, you know, to some extent, especially now, it's a bit of a buyer's market where if you're going to say, well, I can build you this website and it's going to be, I don't know, £5,000, £2,000, £800, whatever. And then they can go off and get a really similar experience somewhere else, and it costs half of whatever you said. It's difficult it's difficult for them to justify, you know. But that's where the design and the way that you pitch your offer and no doubt even things like, we got into talking about offices and the way that you look, you know, it might even be the way that you dress, the computer that you bring to bear with them, the documents and the brochures that you've got, the clients that you've had in the past, like I say, you know, even down to the kind of environment that you put them in inside your office, you know, luxury, everybody, there's 50 agents all answering calls over there, there's 25 coders all over there, they're all sitting at dead cool desks with nice chairs and they've all got the latest Apple Mac. It all kind of swells the feeling that this is a company that you can trust and so on. Whereas with me, it's just me probably showing up in jeans and t-shirt, just answering questions.
I know, it's the same. And we did think, didn't we, that there might be, it might favor value pricing, or it might be easier to do that if you're more focused on the design things, the kind of beauty of it, because you can kind of create that very image very easy that's accessible. Someone can see it straight away. You know, same as dressing, I suppose. If you dress well, they can see that you might be a certain type of person. You can present your offices and the kind of the kit that you have as part of the package. It's a bit harder, I think, if you're a little bit more on doing the coding side, the functionality of a site, where you've got to connect that then to their business aims. So, you know, I mean, the value prices, the well-known ones who do it with the products, the Apples and the Starbucks, they very, I mean, Apple, we were talking about that before, the 1,000 songs in your pocket for the iPod was phenomenal as a marketing message, you know, backed up, as you were pointing out, because, you know, before, and I was mentioning this to you when we were talking before, I, you know, had some early MP3 players that I literally bought from places that were like pound shops. They cost nothing. They effectively did the same thing and pretty much 100 times less than an iPod. But, you know, they did it, didn't they? They got the value over. They got somebody to understand what this might mean for their lives.
Yeah, they also managed to capture cool, didn't they? Apple, for years now, has just been cool. I don't really understand how that works, but do you remember Microsoft came out with a rival product? It began with a Z. Or a Z, as you might say elsewhere. I can't remember what it's called. It was something like the Zorb or something like that. It was 4 letters, I think. Anyway, it functionally did everything, but it wasn't an Apple product, you know, and so it didn't have that kind of kudos. And Apple must have spent absolutely billions of dollars on not only hiring the best video makers and the best with the best ideas, producing sublimely cool commercials, which even me, at the age of, well, probably 30-something, not really their target market, even I could feel that those adverts were cool. And then on the back of that, there's a product, 1,000 songs in your pocket. It was just so compelling. It never actually won me over because at that time I wasn't consuming music via headphones. I wasn't commuting or anything. I didn't really have time for it. But if I'd have been going into an electronics store at that point, I would have been. You would have had to have persuaded me not to buy the Apple one. Not the other way around. And so, moving this onto web design, if you are a really capable designer, the way it looks, the way your website looks, the way your offices looks, the way that you can show previous portfolio of amazing websites that you've done, I think the way things look can be really, really persuasive in this scenario. But I'm in a situation where I'm largely using page builders, which perhaps constrain that a little bit. But also, it's not my forte. Design isn't my forte, and so my business is pitched firmly at much more pedestrian things, shall we say? So that whole value pricing is a little bit more difficult. I was saying earlier, and I'm going to be shot down for this, but especially given that WordPress's sort of motto, if you like, is code is poetry. I was saying that it must be kind of difficult if you're somebody that is a developer and writes code, and somebody comes to you and says, look, I've got this idea for, well, let's say a WordPress plugin, and they approach 10 different people who are all on the face of it can write code. They're able to deliver the end result. It must be extraordinarily difficult to say, well, my result will be better. You should hire me. I guess in the end, it'll come down to the better relationship, whether you can prove that you've done things like this in the past, whether it's, you can do it more quickly and so on. Whereas going to a designer and saying, show me your portfolio of websites that you've built, or, I don't know, publications that you've had printed, magazine layouts and so on, you can really get a strong sense right away of, I want them. They're totally what I want. They just look so cool. That's exactly the way I want my stuff to look. And I'm prepared to pay significantly more to get you because you've just hit the nail on the head with the stuff you've done in the past. So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah. And I don't think, a developer like that could really sell themselves on those. But you could do, even if you just more towards the developer side, most of us are having to build our sites on their own, but you would focus more, as value pricers do, on trying to get that conversation about what other things you could offer with code that they didn't know about, certain automations that can be done, even if it's just as simple as the fact that people don't know that when somebody sends them an inquiry email, you can send them a string of other emails that are automated. That could save an organization a lot of time, and that kind of stuff, or make them more money. So you've got that angle to go at.
But I do very much.
I think Apple and Starbucks are very much about the visual. Starbucks, again, it's ingenious. It doesn't work on me effectively because I still see coffee as coffee. But the idea that you focus on the things, like the environment, the leather sofas, the personal touches, you can have it made how you like, but also even play into the fact that something which is true of all coffee that we have, it comes from various parts of the world. They have a way of presenting that, so it feels like there's a bit of adventure to your coffee. I'm going to select from, this region of the world, and you can visualize, it's got a bit of adventure and glamour to that, which wasn't there when you say, do you want a coffee?
Yes. Imagine as a developer, just sort of going back to what I was saying a moment ago, you were showing the products of your labor to two people who don't code, and you're sort of saying, look how sublimely cool this function is. Look at the way that everything's perfect. I've commented it all perfectly, and it does it in. I'm staggered. It manages to achieve this in half of the time I thought it would take. Just going to have not particularly moist eyes. There's going to be dribbling and boredom, but a designer faced with the same problem. Look at the way I've made this look. Look, it's just chalk and cheese. It's really, really interesting. But I think you're right. The way that you present it, and the way that you pitch yourself, and the way that you turn yourself out in the office and the environment, and all of those things are really persuasive. But just to take my side again, the fixed rate side. Also, I was saying a moment ago that the pricing ultimately, I think, is going to become more important than ever. So we're recording this in a time when we're still in the middle of the COVID-19 situation. we're sufficiently far into it that it's pretty obvious that the economy has been hit fairly catastrophically globally. Lots of people are going out of work. They've lost their jobs, sadly, and there's less money floating around the system. People have got less disposable income. It feels to me that it's going to be harder than ever to justify value pricing as opposed to fixed cost pricing, because the value pricing, let's be clear about this, value pricing is about charging more. You're not doing value pricing so that you can shave money off your fixed pricing. The idea is to charge double or triple or whatever it might be that you feel suitable. And I feel that in this environment, we're going to be struggling to get those marketing departments and the people in control of the purse strings to sign that stuff off, just because, put simply, there ain't any money around.
Yeah, I think when it's in the middle where you can see that people will spend kind of less. I guess, there's always been arguments. I wish I could remember. I remember a very early book, probably a positive thinking book, that was talking about how someone in a recession decided to double the costs of their houses, real estate. It was an American thing, and how that was a success. So they went the opposite direction, because that's what we expect in recession, don't we? Everybody, the cost is it's the time if you've got money to buy stuff, because everybody else wants to sell off stuff because they're worried. So sometimes taking the opposite approach, maybe recession isn't an argument in this one, because it can work either ways. If you're on a fixed price and you keep it to the minimum, then people are always going to come to you because they'll probably still need these things, but maybe they won't. Maybe they will hold off in recession as well. So maybe either models are not recession proof.
That's a good point. Yeah. I was kind of assuming that some things needed to be pushed forward regardless. So, we need a website because we absolutely just need it. We're starting a new business, or our website has just been knocked off the Google rankings because, I don't know, for reasons, maybe it's not mobile responsive or something like that. It's got to be updated, otherwise we're going to go under. And so we need it. And it just feels, especially with local businesses who I deal with, the bottom line, frankly, is the money, and that is the question which often leads the whole discussion, is how much will it cost? That's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. I want a website. I know you do websites. I need it to have 5 pages. So you manage to get a few questions out before they finally say, how much do you think this will be? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear at that point. The value pricers would tell you, look, this is toxic. This is a client. Just step away. At that point, run for the hills and tell them that this is not the kind of business that you're interested in working with. But, it works both ways, a recession. And maybe you're in need of money as much as they are in need of a website. And so you get into a price war with those people around you. And again, this is the stuff which the value pricing model would tell you absolutely to steer clear of. Don't get into a price war. Value price, stick to it, show your worth and all of that. But maybe you're not lucky enough to be in that position. And so having a fixed price, which is affordable but can keep you afloat, is a good thing.
Yeah, that's the hard bit. The reason why I'm not is because I've never really wanted to be bothered with going out looking for work, which I think you need to or you need to put putting that effort in. So I'm too lazy. So I don't want to turn away any work, which you need to do as a value pricer. But there is another argument, I guess, from the value pricer's point of view, is the fact that in the recession where people are talking about the budgets, remember in our kind of value pricing, what we're trying to do is to explore how we might give them some extra value, things they haven't thought about. So we might be able to lead with the recession to say, this is a really great opportunity you're going to need to get ahead of your competitors in this period. So, do the work with us and we'll be delivering more than what your competitors deliver, because they don't go for all the little extra things that you might think about with a website that will increase its conversion rates and things like that. So it could work in our favor as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you're quite right to draw that parallel. There's obviously people even in these trying times where this totally works for them. It does seem interesting, though. I guess the conundrum is, especially if you're a freelancer, if you work for an agency, this model just seems like rock solid. That is to say, value pricing, because you've got experts in your office for all the things. Over there is the guy that does the CSS, and he's the JavaScript guy, and she does the design, and she's in marketing. I don't know, whatever. And so there's somebody that can cover all these bases. So you can be absolutely sure that you're going to knock it out the park in every scenario because there's a total expert. Whereas if you're a freelancer and there's literally just you, not only have you got to be building these websites, but you've got to be keeping up with the latest trends. You've got to be firmly committed to finding out what WordPress is now possible, what it's possible to do within your constraints. Can you code a solution? Can you buy a solution? Is there a plugin for that you can have? You've got to be spending all this time, and then you've got to figure out what that would be worth to somebody. And it makes the job of it just makes you into a jack of all trades, and it's difficult to become an expert in these areas, and also I kind of feel that the difficulty for the freelancer with the value pricing is knowing what the value is, like literally in terms of pounds or dollars or whatever currency you're working in. How do you know? What is the model? How do you sit down and say, okay, so if I implement, let's say for the sake of it, you put, I don't know, some sort of funnel together. That seems to be a popular thing at the moment. Put together this funnel, and you are probably going to have to make up some numbers of conversions and how it might work. And you've done it in the past, and you can see that this kind of stuff works. Or maybe it's split testing, whatever. How do you know? How do you know what this number is? In the end, aren't you just using fixed rates for other things? Aren't you just making up a number and saying, well, my fixed rate for adding in funnels is this? I mean, we're not here talking about I'll take 10% of whatever you generate, I presume, because nobody's going to bite your hand off for that. So you are basically saying, here's a load of other stuff that I can do for you. It will make your business 20% more profitable. So I'm going to ratchet up my prices by 20% to justify that, and so on. So it's a difficult one.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess they would class themselves as value prices. They will literally be doing that. They'll be looking at a company, won't they? And they'll be saying, let's say I'm doing your marketing through the website, and there's other things with it. And let's say on average they've got, I don't know, 7% is their kind of their turnover is, or profitability is what they will put into that kind of advertising budget. There you've got the budget. And I think, the argument, I mean, the reason we got value pricing being so popular, I think, in courses and events is because in our industry, there was at least a problem in the sense that most people started websites with the clients, couldn't control what was going. They set a price, but they can't control the client. And they find they've got no wriggle room, and they're putting in so many hours and not really getting paid because the price in it, that basically how they could do a site for themselves if all went well. So I think the thing is about the value pricing, it's solving a fixed pricing issue that's always been there with underpricing and giving yourself some more wriggle room. But also, if the clients don't know what they're buying for, and they've got these budgets, say they have got this kind of 7% that's going into the advertising, and that could be varying depending on the client, then you've got that time to be able to make more money for them. So I think there's good sense to it. I think where I have an issue is the side of the fact that a lot of people are, like you say, making up a value, and all they're saying you will have better conversions or better traffic, or that this will lead you to so many customers in the marketing, but they wouldn't put their money where their mouth is and guarantee these things. So that's the downside of it, I think. So I concede to your point.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it could be construed as value pricing is basically just upselling stuff. You're just adding in some other things. You're adding in things which could revolutionize their business, or at least make that claim, and then charging basically an upsell for something like that, which is quite interesting. But yeah, the other thing that I wanted to mention was the idea of value pricing. I suppose when it was initially put into the WordPress space, you got some leading lights who began to talk about this and began to sell the message through courses and online videos and so on, that this was something that you could do and demonstrate how it could be done. So it was new and innovative, and so there were very few people out there actually doing it. But as more time goes by, if we all flip over to this value pricing model, aren't we in the end all just doing the same thing? So how do you differentiate yourself if everybody's doing value pricing? I'm not really making a point about fixed pricing, just more a point against value pricing.
Yeah, you mean 80% of us are going after the 5% of the market.
Right, exactly. Yeah. These clients who've got deep pockets, the ones where you can go to them and they've got all these marketing departments and they've got all these people and they're willing to shell out. But we're, like you say, 80% of us are going after these few websites. Whereas 5 years ago, very few people had got themselves to the point where they were even thinking about these. It was just a fixed fee for a website. Now, loads of us have been through these courses. We've all thought about different ways to add on value and so on and refactor our business. And yeah, exactly that. We're all of us going after the tiny amount of people who can afford this stuff. Well, I say tiny amount. I don't know if it's 5% or 30% or whatever, but more people going after the same clients with the same exact ideas of how you can improve the value of the website.
Yeah, it's hard because that's part of the reason why I don't do the value pricing. But I think I can make the value price argument is the fact that maybe if we stop considering it as being in competition against each other for these clients, but we're actually in competition to get the clients to value what a website can do for them. It is along the lines of upselling, but maybe not. Even if you would just say a company wants a static website and that's it, there's no real extra functionality. They haven't got any necessary sort of business goals with it. You can still kind of upsell in that, or how you build that site will depend on how much you're going to charge for it anyway, I think. So if you did, say, A/B testing on it to see, how well it worked, or you did certain amount of revisions, having more time to be able to, I'm making your case with this one, but, having better quality, so even if you're not working, when you build or design a site, if you've got quite a number of months to spend time thinking about that one, you're probably going to come up with a better solution than you would if you had to rush it out in a day. And I think, with value pricing, you get a bit more wriggle room for the designers. Somebody's going to pay a bit more. They're going to get a better result in the end, something that's going to be nicer to their potential visitors, I think. So trying to upsell people the value of a site, because they don't know all the processes that potentially goes into making a website, all the different aspects of it. I don't think even the largest client really has a clue about all that can go into it. So my point about the competition is that you're not competing necessarily against each other after a market. You're actually competing to get the client to see the value in what it is that we do.
I wonder if when I say these words, how many people will sort of identify with it. And obviously, I would imagine a certain proportion would, and other people will say, no, we're well away from that model. But the idea being that you and I've mentioned it before, your clients just, they've got this lowering expectation in terms of the cost of a website over the last, let's say, 5 years. These tools have come along. Most notably in the WordPress space, page builders. And obviously now we have the advent of a page builder, which is going to be free in core. We're not there yet, but it's on, it's coming. And it will be really decent. And being able to put somebody within your business to one side who could maybe work with a designer or work with somebody to put the website together. In other words, they now know the cat is out the bag. If you give Squarespace a few quid or Wix a few quid or WordPress.com a few quid, they know that they can achieve most of what they want without needing to hire somebody expensive. And I know this is the reason why value pricing has sort of come around, because we're fearful that the industry as we've known it, where you needed an actual level of technical expertise to make a website which was beyond most people, well, that's kind of evaporating before our eyes. Now most people, I would say, given a sufficient amount of time and the ability to take in information from videos and reading books and what have you, could probably put something half decent out. And so it's a more difficult proposition than ever. So it's more of the 80% chasing the 5%, and clients coming to you literally safe in the knowledge that they can get a half decent website for $29 a month, on a recurring fee to a SaaS platform. So I feel that whilst maybe that means that the value pricing for those that can pull it off will get even better, it also, I feel, means that it'll be more difficult for the people who can't pull those kind of things off, and who've got clients coming to them within their local area, whatever it is that you're working on, who are simply saying, well, this is all that we can afford, and we know that we can get it for $30 a month over there. So unless you can match that, we'll give you $1,000, because we know that that's probably about the lifetime of the website before we'll need to do it again over $30 each month for a few years. That kind of thing. You know where I'm going with this.
Absolutely.
And of course, the value prices will tell you, well, that's the exact reason to get out of the fixed rate game, because you're up against these cheap solutions. But also, they're becoming more and more of the market, are they? I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's the way I'm going with stuff. So I'm you've convinced me because of that. The people I can get as easy clients. Who the other side, I'm making your point now, is the fact that largely I want clients for life through the other things. So if I'm seen to be giving them a very good cost all the time and not value pricing, I've got that long-term trust. So I go that route. But I do think, and you've said the value prices will argue another thing. And I think there is something important about distinguishing yourself in a marketplace anyway. I mean, who would believe that I wouldn't have done as a kid. When you used to buy donuts, there used to be kind of these cheap things that you would get from the bakers along with something else. Then we end up with Dunkin Donuts and lots of other rivals to them, making the humble, cheap donut into something which people will pay really good money for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's always the thing, isn't it? Is there a way of being able to kind of distinguish yourself? Because that's the value prices argument, isn't it? The race to the bottom to go against that.
Yeah. I think that the truth of this debate is that really, if you can pull off value pricing, and if it's something that your business can cope with, and you've got the time to have invested in figuring out what it is that you're going to be offering pricing against, and you can charge these higher fees, there's literally no reason not to do it, right? You'd just be mad not to charge an additional amount if the client can bear it. But also, I don't think we should be beating ourselves over the head because we just haven't succeeded at doing it that way. If your model is stacked, your business works because of fixed pricing, and it's traditionally worked, and you feel that you're secure in the future, as you said, you've built up a nice, healthy cohort of clients who trust you because you've offered an economical and reliable solution in the past. Equally, that's fine as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be having a debate about it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think the important thing is to pick where you are. I mean, I think it's personalities, and that's why we're both really towards the fixed side of things, because it's the kind of way we are, probably even from where we grew up. And that's, maybe we're too old to want to be different people, really, or pretend to be different people. So I'm very much like that. I'm a kind of cheap Charlie in everything that I buy, and I kind of relate to people who are like me as well. And I like it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think we should probably knock it on the head there. I'd be interested to know, if you've tried out fixed pricing and it's worked best for you, or if you've tried value pricing and that's worked for you, or the flip side, if you've tried value pricing and it's been a complete and utter disaster for you, and you've lost loads of bids because you just didn't quite get it right. I'd be interested to know. We've always got a post in the Facebook group, wpbuilds.com/Facebook, or just in the show notes at the bottom of the post on the website. Be really interested to know what people think about this. Feel like it's a fairly political debate, with people shouting loudly from both sides. So thank you, David, that was fun.
Even moral. Sorry, just before I go, it actually even gets moral, this one, doesn't it, where either sides people think it's a very moral thing to either go value or fixed price. It's interesting. Anyway, enough,
let's knock it on the head. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's always fun chatting to David about these things. Perhaps you've got an opinion on it. Maybe you've moved over to value pricing and it's working out really well for you. Perhaps you tried it and it didn't, and you're back to fixed pricing. Or perhaps you've just stuck with fixed pricing all along. Go over to wpbuilds.com and find the thread and give us some comments, or head over to our Facebook group, wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and you could let us know in the comments over there what your thoughts are. Let's keep the conversation going. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by the Page Builder Summit. Do you use a page builder to create your WordPress websites? Or perhaps you're curious about what they can do? Whether it's Elementor, Beaver Builder, Gutenberg, Breezy, Oxygen, or any of the other page builders, the Page Builder Summit will have something for you. It's running from October the 5th to October the 9th, and you can check out the amazing speaker list and get your free place at summit.camp. And A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. Check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Okay, join us Thursday for the next podcast. Monday, twice. The WP Builds Weekly WordPress News. My version comes out at 7 a.m. and then we've got the live show at 2 p.m. UK time. And hopefully joining me on Tuesday, also live, will be Sabrina Zidane. So lots in store. I hope you have a good week. Stay safe. Bye-bye for now.